The warning sirens screamed across Defense Station Omega-7 as another wave of enemy ships broke through the outer defense line. Captain Dae-ho Kim gripped the command rail and watched the tactical display with growing dread. Red dots swarmed across the screen like angry insects, each one representing a Vorthak warship. "Sir, we've lost contact with Stations 4 and 6, reported his communications officer. The young man's voice shook as he delivered the bad news. "The Zelrani fleet is requesting immediate backup." Dae-ho closed his eyes for a moment. In the past 3 hours, they had lost half of their defense network. The Vorthak Empire had been unstoppable for over 1,000 years, consuming world after world across the galaxy. Now they had come for Kepler 442b, one of the last free worlds, in known space. "How many ships do we have left?" Dae-ho asked his tactical officer. 73 operational vessels, sir. The enemy has over 300. The odds were impossible, but they had to try. Down on the planet below, millions of refugees from a dozen different species waited for evacuation. They had nowhere else to go. The Vorthak had taken everything else. Through the station's main viewport, Dae-ho could see the battle raging in space. Bright flashes lit up the darkness as ships exploded. The Zelrani vessels were sleek and silver, dancing between the larger Vorthak dreadnoughts like fish avoiding sharks. But there were too many sharks. "Incoming transmission from Ambassador Hai-Jin Park," his communications officer announced. The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of a human woman in her 40s. Her diplomatic uniform was torn and blood ran down her forehead. Behind her, Dae-ho could see the chaos of an evacuation ship packed with alien refugees. "Dae-ho, we can't hold them much longer," Ye-jin said. Her voice was calm despite the dire situation. "The last morphoid colonies have fallen. The Krillian hive worlds are silent. We're all that's left." Dae-ho felt his heart sink. The morphoids were ancient beings who lived in the deep oceans of gas giant moons. They had survived the rise and fall of countless civilizations. If they were gone, then truly the galaxy was dying. "What about the reinforcements from the outer rim?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Nothing. No response from anyone. The Vorthak have cut off all communication beyond this system." Ye-jin paused as explosions rocked her ship. "Dae-ho, there's something else. Dr. So-Min Lee has been studying the Vorthak biosignatures. She's discovered something terrible." The screen split to show another human, a woman in a white lab coat who looked exhausted. Dr. So-Min Lee had been studying alien biology for 20 years, but now her eyes held a fear that Dae-ho had never seen before. "Captain Kim," Dr. Lee began, her voice barely above a whisper. "The Vorthak aren't just conquering worlds, they're harvesting them. Every living being they capture, every ecosystem they destroy, they're absorbing the life force to extend their own existence. They're literally stealing the souls of entire species to make themselves immortal." The revelation hit Dae-ho like a physical blow. It wasn't just conquest. It was something far worse. The Vorthak were feeding on life itself. "How long have they been doing this?" he asked. "For over a millennium. Every species they've destroyed, every world they've consumed, all of it has been to fuel their immortality. And Captain, they're not stopping. They won't stop until every living thing in the galaxy is dead or enslaved." Before Dae-ho could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. His tactical officer looked up with terror in his eyes. "Sir, massive enemy formation incoming. 60 Vorthak dreadnoughts heading straight for us." Through the viewport, Dae-ho could see them approaching. The Vorthak ships were things of nightmare, black and twisted like corrupted metal. They pulsed with a sickly green light that seemed to drain the color from everything around them. As they moved, space itself seemed to bend and writhe. "All ships, this is Captain Kim," Dae-ho broadcast to the remaining fleet. "Prepare for final defensive action. Protect the evacuation ships at all costs." But even as he gave the order, he knew it was hopeless. They had lost too many ships, too many good people. The alliance of free species that had stood for thousands of years was about to die here, in the space above this one small world. "Captain," his communications officer called out urgently, Priority transmission from Earth. It's Admiral Command. Daeho's blood turned cold. Earth was on the other side of the galaxy, deep in human space. If they were calling now during the middle of this battle, it could only mean one thing. The transmission was short and filled with static. The face of Admiral Chen appeared on screen, for just a few seconds, but his expression told the whole story. All human forces, this is Admiral Command Earth. We are under massive attack. Multiple Vorthak fleets have entered human space. We are implementing Protocol Zero. Tell our people. Tell them we never surrender. Earth out. The transmission cut to static. Protocol Zero meant one thing: the complete destruction of everything rather than let it fall into enemy hands. Earth, humanity's birth world, was gone. Around the command center, Daeho's crew stared at their screens in shocked silence. Several of them were human, and they had just watched their homeworld die. "Sir," whispered his tactical officer, "the Vorthak dreadnoughts are in firing range." Daeho looked out at the approaching enemy ships, then at his crew, then at the evacuation vessel struggling to escape. Ambassador Hae-jin was still on the screen, tears running down her face. "All ships, this is Captain Kim. Begin immediate. Retreat. Save who you can." "What about the station?" his engineer asked. Daeho was quiet for a moment. Then he turned to his crew with a sad smile. "Set the reactor to overload. If we're going down, we're taking some of them with us." But before anyone could move, Hae-jin's voice cut through the despair. "Daeho, wait." Before the Earth transmission ended, there was something else. "Admiral Chen said to tell you specifically, humanity never surrenders." He emphasized those words. "Why would he say that to you?" Daeho frowned. It was strange. Why single him out? Unless it meant something more. Unless humanity had a plan that even he didn't know about. As the first Vorthak weapons began to fire, painting space with deadly green light, Daeho made a decision that would change everything. Belay that order. All ships, emergency jump to the Gamma sector. We're not dying here today. The galaxy might have lost hope, but somewhere in his heart, Daeho Kim felt a small flame still burning. Humanity never surrenders. 3 years had passed since the Great Scatter, and Captain Daeho Kim barely recognized the man he used to be. His hair had gone gray at the temples, and deep lines marked his face from too many sleepless nights. The indomitable spirit drifted silently through the asteroid fields of the Gamma sector, hiding among the rocks like a wounded animal. "Another patrol just passed through Grid 7, reported Lieutenant Ji-won Han from her pilot station. The young woman had joined them after her home planet fell, and she flew their fighters with a skill that amazed even veteran pilots. Vorthak, scouts, 3 ships moving in standard search pattern. Daeho nodded but said nothing. For 3 years they had played this deadly game of hide-and-seek. The Vorthak controlled 95% of the galaxy now, and their patrols searched constantly for survivors. His small fleet of refugees had grown to include ships from dozens of different species, all united by loss and the desperate hope of staying alive one more day. "Chief Woo-jin, how are our engines holding up?" Daeho asked. Chief Engineer Woo-jin Choi looked up from his repair station with oil-stained hands. The man was a genius with machinery, somehow keeping their battered ships running with spare parts and determination. "The main drive is stable for now, Captain, but we're down to our last fusion cells. Maybe 2 weeks of power if we're careful." 2 weeks. Daeho had heard those words too many times. They were always running out of something: fuel, food, ammunition, hope. But somehow, Woo-jin always found a way to keep them moving. "Sir," called Tactical Officer Min-soo Yoon from his position, "I'm detecting something strange on the long-range sensors. Very faint, but it's there." Min-soo was their best sensor operator, able to detect enemy ships from incredible distances. If he was picking up something unusual, it was worth investigating. "What kind of signal?" Daeho asked. It's hard to explain. It looks like a transmission, but it's using very old encoding. Human encoding from before the war." The bridge fell silent. For 3 years, they had heard nothing from human space except the silence of death. Every probe they sent to former Human worlds found only empty ruins and Vorthak mining operations. Are you certain it's human? Ambassador Heejin Park asked from her station. She had refused to leave when her diplomatic ship was destroyed, instead joining Daeho's crew as their liaison with the other refugee species. Her calm presence helped keep the aliens from losing hope completely. The encryption pattern is definitely from Earth's military network, Minsu confirmed, but that's impossible. We all saw what happened to Earth. Dr. Somin Lee looked up from her research console. For 3 years, she had been studying captured Vorthak technology, trying to find some weakness they could exploit. Her work was slow and dangerous, but she had made some interesting discoveries. Captain, she said quietly, what if Earth didn't fall the way we thought? What if the transmission was meant to mislead the Vorthak? Before Daeho could answer, alarms started sounding throughout the ship. Ji-won's hands flew over her controls as she read the incoming data. Vorthak battle group approaching fast. 12 ships, including 2 dreadnoughts. They must have detected our signal intercept. All ships, emergency scatter protocol, Daeho ordered into his communicator. We'll meet at Rally Point Delta in 6 hours. The indomitable spirit shuddered as its engines came to life. Around them, the small refugee fleet broke apart like leaves in the wind, each ship heading in a different direction to confuse the enemy. It was a drill they had practiced many times, but it never got easier to watch their friends disappear into the darkness. Ji-won, get us out of here, Daeho ordered. The skilled pilot's fingers danced across her controls, and their ship dove between the asteroids with deadly grace. Behind them, green flashes lit up space as the Vorthak ships opened fire on empty rocks. For 2 hours, they played a deadly game of 3-dimensional chess among the asteroids. Ji-won used every trick she knew, sliding between rocks barely wider than their ship, cutting power to drift like debris, using asteroid gravity wells to change direction without using their engines. Finally, they reached the safe zone where the other ships were waiting. As Daeho counted them, his heart sank. They had lost the Zelrani cruiser Silver Dawn and the Morphoid transport Deep Current. Over 300 beings were gone, vanished in the green fire of Vorthak weapons. Sir, Minsu said quietly, I managed to trace that signal before we were interrupted. It's coming from the Sol system. The Sol system, Earth's home, the place where humanity first reached for the stars. That's a death trap, Ambassador Hyejin said. The Vorthak have been mining that system for 3 years. Nothing could survive there. But Daeho felt something stirring in his chest. The same feeling he had gotten 3 years ago when Admiral Chen said that humanity never surrenders. Doctor, Lee, he said, show me everything you've learned about Vorthak technology. For the next hour, Dr. Somin Lee shared her discoveries. The Vorthak ships were powered by stolen life force, which made them incredibly strong but also created certain vulnerabilities. Their quantum resonance frequencies could be disrupted, but only with technology far more advanced than anything the refugees possessed. There's something else, Dr. Lee added. I've been analyzing the pattern of Vorthak attacks over the past 3 years. They're avoiding certain areas of space, places where there should be valuable resources. It's like they're afraid of something. Afraid? Of what? Daeho asked. I don't know, but whatever it is, it might be connected to these signals from the Sol system. That night, as the refugee fleet drifted in the shadow of a dead planet, Daeho made a decision that would change everything. Despite the protests of his crew and the other ship captains, he authorized a reconnaissance mission to Earth. Ji-won volunteered to pilot the mission herself, taking only a small scout ship and a skeleton crew. Dr. Jae-hyun Seo, their physicist, went along to analyze any technology they might find. 3 days later, Ji-won's voice crackled through space from the Sol system, and what she reported made everyone's hearts race. Captain, you're not going to believe this. Earth looks dead from orbit just like we expected. Vorthak mining ships everywhere, the continents burned black. But I'm detecting massive energy readings from beneath the surface. And Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. The signal was weak and heavily encrypted, but Minsu managed to clean it up enough to understand. When the voice finally came through clearly, Daeho felt his knees go weak. This is Admiral Soon-ho Kang of the Human Resistance. To any surviving human forces, Receiving this transmission, we are alive and operational. The reports of Earth's destruction were greatly exaggerated. We have been waiting for you to find us. Admiral Sunho Kang. Daeho knew that name. She had been Earth's greatest military mind, the woman who had never lost a battle. If she was alive, if she was still fighting, then maybe... Jiwon, Daeho said into his communicator, his voice barely controlled. Can you establish a secure channel? Working on it now, sir. The Admiral is requesting permission for you to approach. She says they have something to show you that will change everything. Around the bridge, Daeho's crew stared at him with hope and fear warring in their eyes. For 3 years they had run and hidden and watched their friends die. They had believed that humanity was extinct, that the galaxy was doomed. But now, a voice from humanity's birth world called to them through the darkness, a voice that promised answers, and maybe, just maybe, a way to fight back. Set course for Earth, Daeho ordered. It's time to go home. As the indomitable spirit turned toward the Sol system, Ambassador Hye-jin placed a hand on Daeho's shoulder. What if it's a trap? She asked quietly. Daeho smiled for the first time in 3 years. Then we'll spring it together. But something tells me that humanity has been preparing for this moment much longer than any of us realized. The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying its precious cargo of hope toward a world that was supposed to be dead, toward answers that would shake the foundations of the galaxy. The indomitable spirit dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, and Captain Daeho Kim stared at what remained of humanity's birth world. From space, Earth looked exactly as he had feared, a burned, lifeless rock surrounded by Vorthak mining platforms. The blue oceans had turned gray and no lights showed on the night side of the planet. Sensors are picking up 17 Vorthak mining ships in orbit, reported Min Soo-yoon. But they're not moving toward us. It's like they can't see us. Lieutenant Jiwon Han frowned at her pilot controls. That's impossible. We're broadcasting standard approach signals. Before anyone could respond, their communications system came alive with Admiral Sunho Kang's voice. Captain Kim, welcome home. Please follow the navigation beacon we're transmitting. And don't worry about the Vorthak ships. They can't detect you while you're following our signal. The beacon led them not to Earth's surface, but to what appeared to be empty space near the moon. As they approached, the emptiness suddenly shimmered and revealed the outline of a massive space station. The technology was clearly human, but unlike anything Daeho had ever seen. Cloaking technology, breathed Dr. So-min Lee. They've developed actual invisibility fields. A docking tube extended from the hidden station, and soon Daeho found himself walking through corridors that buzzed with activity. Human technicians worked alongside machines he didn't recognize, and the air hummed with energy that seemed almost alive. Admiral Sunho Kang waited for them in the main briefing room. She was a tall woman in her 50s, with sharp eyes and silver hair pulled back in a military knot. Despite 3 years of supposed death and destruction, she looked confident and well-rested. Captain Kim, she said, extending her hand, I apologize for the deception, but it was necessary. Please sit down. What I'm about to show you will be difficult to believe. She activated a holographic display that showed the Sol system, but not as Daeho remembered it. Beneath Earth's burned surface, massive tunnel networks connected underground cities that housed billions of people. The moon had been hollowed out and converted into a fortress. Even Mars showed signs of hidden construction. When the Vorthak attacked 3 years ago, we were ready, Admiral Kang explained. We had been watching them destroy other civilizations for decades, studying their methods. We knew they would come for us eventually. But the planet looks dead, Ambassador Hye-jin Park said. We saw the destruction broadcasts. Admiral Kang smiled grimly. We made it look dead. Every human city on the surface was evacuated months before the attack. When the Vorthak arrived, they found exactly what we wanted them to find: empty buildings and staged destruction. They think they harvested all human life force, but they only absorbed energy from our decoy installations. Dr. So-min Lee leaned forward. The signal patterns. You've been hiding underground this entire time? Not just hiding. Building. Admiral Kang touched a control, and the hologram expanded to show star systems across the galaxy. Blue dots appeared on dozens of worlds. We've been liberating planets one at a time. Every time the Vorthak think they've completely conquered a world, we tunnel underneath and extract the survivors. Chief Engineer Woo Jin Choi stared at the display in amazement. The technology required for this, it's impossible. No one has quantum tunneling that can span light years. Follow me, Admiral Kang said. She led them deeper into the station, past laboratories filled with devices that seemed to bend reality itself. In one room, a woman in a lab coat was working with crystals that floated in midair, singing with harmonious tones. Chief Science Director Yujin. "Oh," Admiral Kang announced. "She leads our research division." Yujin Oh looked up with excited eyes. "Captain Kim, we've been monitoring your refugee fleet for months. Your Dr. Lee's research on Vorthak quantum frequencies was brilliant. It helped us complete our phase shift technology." "Phase shift?" Dr. Lee asked. "Ships that can move between dimensions," Yujin explained enthusiastically. "The Vorthak exist primarily in our reality, but we've learned to slip between the spaces. They can't see. It's how we've been conducting our liberation operations." They moved to another section where a young man in military gear was demonstrating combat techniques to a group of trainees. But this wasn't ordinary combat. The soldier moved with impossible speed and strength, his body enhanced beyond normal, human limits. "Sergeant Bo-Ram Kim," Admiral Kang introduced. "Our enhancement program has produced soldiers who can match Vorthak bioengineering. We call them our Phoenix Guards." Bo-Ram bowed respectfully. "Captain Kim, it's an honor. We've heard stories of your escape from Kepler 442b. Your tactics saved thousands of lives." But it was the next room that truly amazed them. Master Engineer Dong-Hyun Park was overseeing the construction of ships that looked like they were grown, rather than built. The hulls seemed to flow like liquid metal, and weapons that glowed with inner fire were being installed along their sides. "Project Phoenix," Admiral Kang said proudly. "Ships that combine human engineering with captured Vorthak biotechnology. Each one can phase between dimensions and strike from directions the enemy never expects." Daeho felt overwhelmed. In 3 years of running and hiding, he had watched the galaxy slowly die. But here humanity had been growing stronger. "How many ships do you have?" he asked. "Our Ghost Fleet currently numbers over 2,000 vessels," Admiral Kang replied. "But that's not the most important part. Captain, I'd like you to meet someone special." They entered a command center where a woman in naval uniform was coordinating operations across multiple star systems. When she turned around, Daeho's heart nearly stopped. "Hello, brother," Commander Yoon-Hae Kim said with a warm smile. Daeho had thought his sister was dead. Her ship had been destroyed in the first wave of Vorthak attacks 3 years ago. But here she stood, alive and clearly in command of something important. "Yoon-Hae? How?" "We saw your ship explode." "Emergency teleportation," she explained. "We'd been testing the technology for months. When the attack came, we used it to evacuate our crews to hidden bases. The Vorthak destroyed empty ships while we escaped to fight another day." She showed him tactical displays of recent operations. Ghost Fleet ships had liberated mining worlds, rescued enslaved populations, and even destroyed Vorthak harvester fleets. The enemy had no idea they were being fought by humans they thought were extinct. "But there's something else," Intelligence Chief Hyeon Woo Lee said as he joined the group. He was a serious man with tired eyes who looked like he carried the weight of terrible knowledge. "We've been intercepting Vorthak communications for 2 years now," he continued. "They're not the original threat, Captain. They're running from something even worse." The room fell silent as Hyeon Woo activated a new display. It showed the edge of their galaxy, where strange distortions marked the approach of something from the void beyond. "They call it the Void Bringer. It consumed their original galaxy completely, turning entire star systems into nothingness. The Vorthak came here as refugees, but they chose to conquer rather than ask for help." Dr. So-Min Lee studied the data with growing alarm. "How long until this Void Bringer reaches us?" 6 months, maybe less. Admiral Kang looked around the room at the assembled group. This is why we've been preparing. Not just to defeat the Vorthak, but to defend against something that destroyed an entire galaxy. We need every ship, every soldier, every mind working together. Daeho felt the magnitude of the situation settling on his shoulders. What do you need from us? Your refugee fleet represents dozens of species with different technologies and abilities, Admiral Kang explained. We need that diversity. Humans are adaptable, but we're not the only ones with unique strengths. Ambassador Hyejin stepped forward. The Zelrani have quantum mathematics that could enhance your phase shift technology. The Morphoids understand bioengineering in ways you might not have considered. And the Krillians, added Tactical Officer Minsu. Their hive mind communication could coordinate fleet actions across vast distances. Commander Yoon Hai smiled at her brother. We've been waiting for you to find us, Daeho, not just for the ships you've gathered, but for the connections you've made. You've united species that had never worked together before. Admiral Kang moved to the center of the room. The choice is ours now. We can remain hidden, let the Vorthak and this Voidbringer destroy each other, and hope for the best. Or we can step into the light and fight for every living being in the galaxy. She looked directly at Daeho. Your refugee fleet has been a symbol of hope for 3 years, proof that different species can work together, can survive against impossible odds. We need that symbol to become something bigger. Daeho thought about all the people who had died, all the worlds that had fallen, all the times they had run from fights they couldn't win. Then he thought about Bo-Ram's enhanced soldiers, Yujin's impossible technology, and his sister's ghost fleet. Maybe it was time to stop running. Admiral, he said firmly, humanity never surrenders, and neither do our allies. What do you need us to do? Admiral Kang's smile lit up the entire room. Get ready, Captain. We're about to announce to the galaxy that Earth's children have come home, and we're bringing friends. Admiral Sun Ho Kang stood before the assembled fleet commanders in the hidden command center, her eyes blazing with determination. The time for hiding was over. Today, humanity would step out of the shadows and show the galaxy that Earth's children were very much alive. Operation Rising Phoenix begins in 6 hours, she announced. Commander Yoon Hai, are your Ghost Fleet squadrons in position? Commander Yoon Hai Kim nodded from her command station. All 2,000 ships are cloaked and waiting at their target. Coordinates. We'll hit 12 major Vorthak strongholds simultaneously. They won't know what hit them. Captain Daeho Kim watched the tactical displays with amazement. The Ghost Fleet ships were positioned across half the galaxy, completely invisible to Vorthak sensors. Each ship was equipped with the new phase shift technology that allowed them to appear inside enemy formations without warning. Remember, Admiral Kang continued, our goal isn't just to destroy Vorthak installations. We need to rescue as many enslaved beings as possible and show the galaxy that resistance is not futile. Lieutenant Ji-Wan Han raised her hand. Admiral, my squadron is ready to provide close air support for the ground operations. The new Phoenix fighters can phase shift just like the larger ships. Good. Dr. So-Min Lee, are the quantum disruptors ready for deployment? Dr. Lee looked up from her technical console with tired but excited eyes. All systems tested and confirmed. When we activate them, the Vorthak life force absorption networks will collapse. Their stolen immortality will crumble. Chief Science Director Yujin Oh added, we've also prepared the liberation arrays for the enslaved worlds. Once we clear the orbital defenses, we can free entire planetary populations in minutes instead of months. The plan was ambitious beyond anything attempted before. 12 simultaneous strikes across the galaxy, each one designed to cripple Vorthak. Operations while rescuing millions of enslaved beings. If it worked, it would announce humanity's return in the most dramatic way possible. Captain Kim, Admiral Kang said, your refugee fleet will coordinate with our forces to provide evacuation support. The Zelrani ships are fast enough to extract survivors while our Ghost Fleet engages the enemy. Daeho nodded. Ambassador Hyejin has been working with the other species representatives. Everyone understands their role. Ambassador Hyejin Park stepped forward. The Morphoids will use their bioships to heal any rescued beings who have been damaged by Vorthak life force extraction. The Krillians will provide hive-mind communication networks to coordinate the rescue operations across multiple star systems. Hours later, the operation began. Commander Yunhai led the first wave from her flagship, the Phoenix Rising. The massive vessel phased into reality directly above the Vorthak fortress world of Xerion Prime, appearing inside the enemy's defensive grid, like a ghost materializing from thin air. All ships, this is Phoenix Leader. Yunhai broadcast to her fleet. You are weapons free. Show them that humanity remembers every world they stole. The Ghost Fleet ships opened fire with weapons that had never been seen before in the galaxy. Energy beams that shifted between dimensions carved through. Vorthak armor like paper. Quantum torpedoes phased inside enemy hulls before exploding. The supposedly invincible Vorthak dreadnoughts began exploding in brilliant flashes of green fire. On Xerion Prime's surface, Master Engineer Dong-hyun Park led the first ground assault. His Phoenix Guards moved with inhuman speed and strength, their enhanced bodies allowing them to fight Vorthak bio-warriors on equal terms. For the first time in 1,000 years, the crystalline conquerors faced enemies who could match their physical capabilities. Liberation Array is in position. Dong-hyun reported as his team secured the planetary control center, activating quantum disruptors now. Across the planet, the Vorthak life force extraction facilities began to fail. The green energy networks that had turned billions of beings into power sources flickered and died. In underground slave camps, prisoners who had been drained to near death suddenly felt their strength returning. Similar scenes played out across 11 other star systems. Commander Tae-young Park led the assault on the industrial world of Hegemony Station, where Vorthak factories had been producing warships for decades. His single Phoenix-class destroyer somehow managed to destroy an entire orbital shipyard by phasing its quantum torpedoes directly into the station's power core. "This is impossible," reported one of the Vorthak commanders to his fleet. "The humans are supposed to be extinct. Where did these ships come from?" But the answers didn't matter. What mattered was that for the first time in their 1,000-year expansion, the Vorthak Empire was losing. Badly. Major Ki-ho Jung led the ground assault on New Kepler Prime, where millions of refugees from dozens of species had been enslaved in mining operations. His Phoenix Guards moved through the underground tunnels like angels of death, their enhanced abilities allowing them to rescue prisoners and eliminate guards with equal efficiency. "Master Engineer Dong-hyun, we need the Liberation Array online now," Ki-ho called as Vorthak reinforcements began arriving. "We've got maybe 10 minutes before they overwhelm us." Dong-hyun's voice came through the communicator with calm determination. "Array is charging, 60 seconds to activation." But as the seconds ticked by, it became clear that they wouldn't have 60 seconds. Vorthak bio-warriors were flooding into the facility, their crystalline armor gleaming in the harsh industrial lighting. Ki-ho's team was surrounded. "Sir," one of his Phoenix Guards called out, "we can't hold them much longer." Dong-hyun made a decision that would echo through history. Instead of waiting for the proper charging sequence, he manually overloaded the Liberation Array with his own life force. "For every world they took," he said into his communicator, "we'll take 10 back." The array exploded in a burst of pure energy that spread across the entire planet. Every Vorthak life force extraction device on New Kepler Prime died instantly. Millions of enslaved beings felt their stolen energy return to them. And Master Engineer Dong-hyun Park became the first human to die in humanity's great return to the galaxy. His sacrifice wasn't in vain. Within minutes, Major Ki-ho's team had secured the facility and began evacuating the freed prisoners. Zelrani ships piloted by refugees from Daeho's fleet arrived to provide transport, their sleek vessels dancing between Vorthak attackers with graceful precision. Across the galaxy, the other operations achieved similar success. Dr. So-min Lee's quantum disruptors worked exactly as designed, severing the Vorthak connection to their stolen immortality. Without that constant flow of life force, many of their older ships simply stopped functioning as their ancient crews finally died. But the most shocking moment came when Admiral Kang revealed the true scope of humanity's preparation. As Vorthak, reinforcement fleets converged on the liberated worlds, Massive space fortresses phased into reality around each star system. These weren't ships. They were mobile space stations the size of small moons, each one bristling with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Project Phoenix wasn't just about ships, Admiral Kang explained to the stunned Vorthak commanders who intercepted her broadcast. We've been building a galactic defense network. Every world you thought you conquered, every system you believed, was under your control. We've been there all along, preparing. Intelligence Chief Hyun-Woo Lee provided the final revelation that shook the Vorthak Empire to its core. His teams had broken their most secret communications and discovered the truth about the approaching threat from beyond the galaxy. The Voidbringer arrives in 4 months, he announced to both human and Vorthak forces. Your empire has a choice. Continue this pointless war and face extinction alone, or work with us to defend this galaxy against something that destroyed yours. The broadcast ended with Admiral Kang standing before a holographic display, showing the edge of galactic space, where reality itself was beginning to unravel as the Voidbringer approached. To every species in this galaxy, she said, human, Vorthak or otherwise, we have 4 months to prepare for a threat that consumes entire realities. We can face it as enemies and all die, or we can face it together and maybe, just maybe, survive. Captain Dae-ho Kim watched from the bridge of the indomitable spirit as reports poured in from across the galaxy. 12 major Vorthak strongholds had fallen in a single day. Millions of enslaved beings had been freed. The supposedly extinct human race had announced their return with fire and fury that shook the foundations of known space. But as he looked at the readings from Galactic Edge, where something vast and hungry was approaching through the void between realities, Dae-ho realized that their greatest challenge was yet to come. The galaxy had lost hope until humanity rose in fire and fury. Now they had to convince their former enemies to stand with them against something far worse than anything they had ever faced. The real war was about to begin. The galactic barrier shimmered and twisted as something massive pushed through from the void beyond. Captain Dae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of the new flagship Eternal Phoenix, watching sensors that could barely comprehend what they were detecting. The Voidbringer had arrived, and it was worse than anyone had imagined. "Sir," reported Tactical Officer Min Soo-yoon, his voice tight with fear. "The entity is approximately the size of our entire solar system. It's not a ship. It's something else entirely." Through the main viewport, Dae-ho could see the impossible sight. Where space had once held stars and planets, now there was only writhing darkness that seemed to eat light itself. The Voidbringer wasn't just a threat to life. It was a threat to reality. "Admiral Kang, are you seeing this?" Dae-ho asked into his communicator. Admiral Soon-ho Kang's voice came through from the command center on the hidden space station. "We're tracking it, Captain. The entity appears to feed on the basic forces that hold matter together. Wherever it passes, atoms simply stop existing." For 2 months, humanity had worked frantically to forge an alliance with their former enemies. The Vorthak Empire, faced with the destruction of another galaxy, had finally agreed to share their technology and fight alongside the species they had spent 1,000 years conquering. The result was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. 2 million ships from hundreds of different species, all united under a single desperate goal, survived the next few hours. "This is Admiral Kang to all fleet commanders," came the broadcast across all channels. "The Voidbringer has fully entered our reality. All ships assume formation Beta 7. We're going to try something that has never been attempted before." Commander Yoon-hae Kim led the first wave from her upgraded flagship. The Phoenix Rising had been rebuilt with both human and Vorthak technology, creating a vessel that could phase between dimensions while channeling massive amounts of life force energy. "All Ghost Fleet units, follow my lead," she commanded. "We're going to phase strike directly into the entity's core." But as the human ships approached the Voidbringer, something terrible became clear. The entity wasn't just consuming matter, it was consuming hope itself. Ships that got too close began to slow down as their crews lost the will to fight. "It's feeding on our emotions," Dr. So-min Lee reported from her research station. "The closer we get, the more hopeless we feel. That's how it destroyed the Vorthak home galaxy. It drained their will to resist." Lieutenant Jiwan Han was piloting her fighter squadron when the effect hit them. One moment she was confidently leading her team toward the enemy. The next she felt crushing despair that made her wonder why they were even trying to fight. "Squadron leaders, this is Phoenix Lead," she called out, forcing her voice to stay steady. "Remember what we're fighting for. Remember every world we've saved, every person we've rescued. Don't let it take that away from us, the Vorthak Empress." Crystal Mind Zirian commanded her biomechanical fleets from a massive living ship that pulsed with green energy. For the first time in her 1,000-year existence, she found herself fighting alongside the very beings her empire had tried to exterminate. "Human Admiral," she broadcast to Admiral Kang, "our bioships are designed to channel life force. If we can combine that with your phase shift technology, we might be able to disrupt the entity's feeding process." "Agreed," Admiral Kang replied. "Dr. Jae-hyun Seo, can you modify our quantum disruptors to work with Vorthak biotechnology?" Dr. Seo had been working around the clock to understand how human and Vorthak systems could work together. "It's theoretically possible, but we'd need every ship in the fleet to contribute their life force simultaneously, and someone would have to fly directly into the entity to deploy the device." Chief Engineer Woo Jin Choi looked up from his engineering station. The Eternal Phoenix could do it. With the new hybrid systems, she could survive long enough to reach the core. But as the battle raged, it became clear that conventional weapons were useless. The Voidbringer simply absorbed energy attacks and turned physical projectiles into nothingness. Worse, every ship they lost seemed to make the entity stronger. "We're losing too many vessels," reported Commander Tae-young Park from his position commanding the Zelrani fleet. "The entity is growing larger with every ship it consumes." That's when Intelligence Chief Hyeon Woo Lee made a crucial discovery. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the entity's behavior patterns. It doesn't just feed on matter and energy. It feeds on despair and hopelessness. But there's something it can't process." "What?" Admiral Kang asked urgently. "Hope combined with defiance. When beings refuse to surrender, when they maintain hope against impossible odds, it actually weakens the entity. That's why humanity survived. We never give up." Lieutenant Jiwan realized what this meant. If every person in the fleet could feel the same level of hope and defiance simultaneously, we could create a quantum resonance that disrupts the entity's feeding process, Dr. Jae-hyun finished. "But how do we coordinate the emotions of millions of beings across hundreds of species?" The answer came from an unexpected source. The Krillian hive mind, which had been providing communication networks for the fleet, offered to link every conscious being in the Allied Armada into a single emotional network. "We can share feelings across species barriers," explained the Krillian. "Queen Mind. If one being feels true hope, we can make all beings feel it." Admiral Kang made the decision that would determine the fate of the galaxy. "All ships prepare for full emotional linkage. We're going to show this thing what it means to fight alongside humanity." As the Krillian hive mind opened its connection, millions of beings across the fleet suddenly felt each other's thoughts and emotions. The fear and despair were there, but so was something else. The burning determination of humans who had spent 3 years refusing to surrender. Commander Yoon Hai felt it first as she piloted the Phoenix rising toward the entity's core. The unshakable, human belief that tomorrow could be better than today, that even the worst situations could be overcome with enough determination and cooperation. "This is Phoenix Leader to all ships," she broadcast as her vessel phased directly into the Voidbringer's dark heart. "Feel what we feel. Remember why we fight. Remember that hope is stronger than any darkness." The emotional resonance spread through the fleet like wildfire. Zelrani pilots who had fled their dying worlds felt the human refusal to accept defeat. Morphoid bioships that had watched their ancient civilization crumble felt the burning determination to protect what remained. Even Vorthak commanders who had spent centuries believing in their own superiority felt the simple human truth that everyone deserved a chance to live. "Deploy the quantum disruptor," Admiral Kang ordered. As the device activated, powered by the combined life force and hope of millions of beings, the Voidbringer suddenly stopped advancing. For the first time in its existence across multiple galaxies, it encountered something it couldn't consume: the absolute refusal of an entire galaxy to surrender. The entity writhed and twisted, trying to feed on the despair it had always found in its victims. But instead of hopelessness, it found defiance. Instead of surrender, it found determination. Instead of fear, it found millions of beings willing to fight together for their shared future. Dr. So-Min Lee watched her instruments in amazement. The entity's quantum structure is destabilizing. It can't process the emotional resonance we're creating. Lieutenant Ji-Won led her fighter squadron in the final assault, her small ships dancing between realities as they struck at the entity's weakening form. For every world it destroyed, for every species it consumed, this ends here. As the Voidbringer began to collapse in on itself, retreating toward the galactic barrier, Admiral Kang broadcast a message that would be remembered for 1,000 years. To every being in this galaxy, human or alien, former enemy or longtime friend, today we proved that hope is stronger than hunger, that unity is stronger than entropy, and that life will always find a way to survive. We faced the death of reality itself, and we didn't just survive. We won. The entity retreated through the galactic barrier, fleeing toward the empty void between galaxies where it could no longer threaten any living civilization. Captain Dae-Ho Kim stood on the bridge of the Eternal Phoenix, watching as the Allied fleet began to disperse. Ships that had been enemies just months ago now flew in formation together, their crews forever changed by the shared experience of defying extinction itself. "Sir," Ambassador Hyejin Park said softly, "what happens now? We've saved the galaxy, but we still have to live in it." Dae-Ho smiled as he watched Vorthak bioships working alongside human vessels to establish new trade routes and communication networks. Now we build something better. We take everything we learned about cooperation and hope and we use it to make sure nothing like this ever threatens our galaxy again. Chief Engineer Wu Jin looked up from his console with a tired but satisfied expression. "The new ships are holding together beautifully, sir. Human adaptability, Vorthak bioengineering, Zelrani mathematics, Morphoid healing technology, Krillian communication networks. We've created something none of our species could have built alone." 3 months later, Captain Dae-Ho Kim stood in the observation deck of the new Galactic Unity Station, watching as construction crews from dozens of species